Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say, it's great to be a Florida Gator.
And welcome to a Thursday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Glad you're joining us for today. We got a good show. We're going to crank it up here in just a second, talk a little college sports, both basketball and football, with our good friend Brent Beaird. And then in the second portion of the show, we're going to talk with Craig Brown, former shooting guard on the first ever Gator Final Four team, get his thoughts, tell you what he's up to these days. But in the meantime, let's go to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Brent Beaird, and you can follow him on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Shane, I'm doing well. I tell you, it's a amazing week. Really one of the better weeks of the year, with the tournament starting in basketball, and also we've got numerous teams in college football and in the SEC that are opening spring practice this week, just about virtually as we speak here. Somebody different almost every day. So it's a fun time of year, isn't it?
It really is. Let's start before we get into college football. The tournament starts today with the play-in games, but the SEC got 6 teams in. The regular season champ and the tournament champ, the Alabama Crimson Tide, which I believe is the first time from I believe I read where a Power 5 winner of both tournament and regular season was not a 1 seed. They open up with Iona, which is kind of an interesting game with Rick Pitino being the coach for the Iona Gales.
Pitino does not have the players that Alabama does, but they will be well coached. They will not make a lot of mistakes, so Alabama is going to have to be very careful. Bama really kind of grew up in the SEC tournament, defensively, coming back and beating Tennessee after being down double digits, and then outlasting, frankly, LSU in the finals to be able to win the tournament. First time since 1991. That's a long time. Wimp Sanderson was coach then. Robert Ory, Latrell Sprewell was among that group back at that time. So, so Bama will have a tough matchup there, and then after that they will face the UConn-Maryland winner, which are also 2 very good teams.
Yeah, they are. UConn's playing really well right now.
Yes.
Arkansas, who had won, I think, 12 in a row, get upset in the SEC tournament by LSU, who was playing pretty good basketball. But they have an interesting matchup against Colgate, who can really shoot the basketball. They can score a lot of points. Do you see Arkansas struggling any at all with Colgate?
I think they could. I mean, that thing could be in the 90s. Wouldn't shock me if it was 100 to 105 to 100 or something like that. I still think Arkansas is still one of the better teams in the entire March Madness. They can pretty well do it all. They handle the ball well. Moses Moody is one of the better players. Also, J.D. Notae has played extremely well. But yeah, I could see them having some problem. I still think they will win. I think they will probably play Texas Tech. But listen, and I think it stops at Ohio State. But Shane, I could see both Bama and Arkansas ending up at least in the Sweet 16.
Very possible. The Gators get a 7 seed. First off, were you a little surprised there? I think a lot of people were wondering how they got a 7 seed and you got LSU and Missouri, 8 9s. But I think that West Virginia win went a long ways with the committee. I think the Gators beat Virginia Tech tomorrow, but if they run into the Buckeyes, that concerns me.
Yeah, absolutely, and it should, as well as Ohio State is playing. I really kind of thought the seeding in this game would almost be reversed. The way Florida was playing at the end of the season, I thought they might be the 10 and Virginia Tech may end up being the 7. But I think the thing that concerns me is what Mike White said after the end of the basically the 1 and out for the SEC tournament, was that we're not really mentally mature right now as much as we should be. So hopefully they've dealt with that. I know a lot was made about some of the comments, Trey Mann mentioning that they had not looked at a lot of film, and this was a couple of days ago. So, and Shane, you know how this stuff works, that they've probably been working on themselves. And they'll look, by the time that it's time to play tomorrow, they'll have a pretty thorough knowledge of what Virginia Tech does by then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, sometimes, regardless of what the sport is, I know in football, a lot of times, coaches sometimes like, look, we're not even going to watch tape on our opponent. We're going to worry about doing what we do. And
sure.
So people can overreact. But, you know, and plus you're playing in a conference tournament. You're very familiar with everybody that you've already played. LSU and Missouri are both 8-9 seeds. I think LSU, if they play the way they played against Bama, and they just play a little bit of defense, I think they can make a deep run in this tournament because of the talent they have. Now, Missouri, they got a tough battle against Oklahoma, and I'll be dang if they win it, they might as well get ready to pack up and go home because they ain't beating Gonzaga. These two teams, though, I think LSU being I think they're on the side with Michigan. I don't think Michigan is going to make the Final Four without Isaiah
Agreed.
Livers. Your thoughts?
Well, and I'll back up what you're saying. As a matter of fact, I frankly could see LSU beating Michigan. Couldn't you, Shane?
Yes, I definitely could.
I think look, listen, if LSU's dialed in, the LSU's trouble is not offense. They've got 3 of the better scorers in the league. Their problem is, do they want to play defense for the entire game? At this point, I've got LSU playing Florida State. I think Florida State wins, and frankly, I think Florida State goes to the Final Four. I said that before the beginning of the year, so I'm certainly with you on that. Yes, now I think Missouri will win, but again, as you and I talked several weeks ago, when you're either an 8 or 9 seed and you win, you're still dealing with number 1, so it stops pretty quickly, unfortunately.
It does. Tennessee played Alabama really well, I thought, in the tournament. Fulkerson, have you heard any word if he's going to play in the NCAA tournament?
No, it's still up in the air. That's one of those day-to-day things, and hopefully he will. But Shane, the thing that was concerning about that is he received a fracture around his eye. And again, look, we're not surgeons and doctors with this, but I'm sure they're being very careful about that situation to see where that goes. But hopefully he will, because as much as anything else, he is a real leader for them. They've got to be careful. They're playing Oregon State. I do think they will win, and then they've got probably a pretty tough Oklahoma State after that. I'm not sure that they get that far. But as you said, and I agree with that, if they could play with the tenacity they played against Alabama, they might end up the Sweet 16 themselves.
Yeah, they could. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot. March is your lucky month at Wrap Spot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. We're speaking with Brent Beaird on the Titan Moore Hotline from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Don't forget, folks, you can go to ESPN.com, their bracket challenge. Type in the group Pod Up with Shane Matthews and fill out your bracket. And we're going to have a good prize pack to whoever wins the bracket challenge. All right, Brent, let's shift gears to college football. What is it? Out in Arizona, Jed Fish, who was like a volunteer assistant when he was a student here at Florida, has had a bunch of jobs. He's now the head coach at Arizona. It just blows me away. He's going to allow his spring practice. He's opening it up to the public, to the media and everything, right?
Listen, I love this. His policy for now is everything is open. They've got in-person interviews. He will be available every day. They've got position groups and coaches will have certain days. I mean, that's just nice to see. and particularly when you've got the secrecy that even during spring practice. I mean, listen, Shane, you know there's only so much you can do during spring, and most of these teams, I would wouldn't hesitate to say 99% of them, they're not changing their offense. I mean, they're not going from a spread to a wishbone. So at some point, I mean, this is not homeland security here. Spring should be a time where you open it up. And look, to me, these kids' stories need to be told. So give them an opportunity to be able to do that. So Jed Fish, who, by the way, you remember was with the Jaguars at one point, he's at Arizona. So I love his take on it. I hope more coaches do that.
You know, spring football is so different than it was back in the days when I played. It was more laid back, have fun, let the young kids, the walk-ons get a lot of playing time. It's still crazy to me. And honestly, if you went to practice every day, I don't know what you would even take out of it if you get the fans got to watch, because I don't know. That's why I don't even go watch. So the dead period. Can you explain, are they going to get rid of this dead period? When are kids going to be able to take official visits or come on campus at all this summer?
It looks like there's momentum that's being gained for that. The NCAA Football Oversight Committee has a group that is looking at June and July as being that time. Now, obviously, now we have gone basically in this dead period for over a year. So hopefully we're going to get back to players being able to visit and also coaches being able to visit. So the dead period is supposed to be over May 31st, or at least it was extended until then. So hopefully that will be changed. And look, Shane, at some point, you just got to trust your schools to do what's right. And these schools have got the protocols set up. I mean, they've just played a season, for crying out loud. If you do that, you can have a few kids and a few parents on your campus. So hopefully the dead period will end and they can begin to get out in June and July.
Yeah. Speaking with Brent Beaird here on the Titan Moore Hotline, don't forget the second portion of today's show will be joined by former shooting guard on the 1994 Final Four team. Craig Brown will join us. Hey, Brent, okay. Now the NCAA is wanting to tinker with the overtime rules. Can you kind of let us know what they're thinking?
Again, the committee is recommending some changes in overtime. And now the thing that we've got is obviously if a team reaches the second overtime, the teams will be required to attempt a 2-point conversion after touchdown. When they get to a third overtime, instead of moving the ball to the 25 to basically go through what we're used to seeing, get this now, the teams would be required to alternate 2-point plays. And my understanding is that's what they would do. They would just swap 2-point plays instead of, say, getting 4 downs. If you get a first down, you continue until you score or the defense stops you. So, Shane, my question to you is, you play an entire game, you've got so much at stake, and then it comes down to alternating 2-point plays. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
No, I don't like it at all. What is it right now? After the third overtime, you're required to go for 2.
Right.
But that's
right.
You still get to drive the football and then you go for 2. It's
Correct.
not they don't set the ball down there and we're gonna go back and forth with 2-point plays. I think it's silly, personally. I hope it does not happen because there's these people out here. Well, we can't have these 7 overtime games. Why not? Who cares? It's fun. It's fun to watch.
Well, oh, yeah. And listen, from last year, there were only, of all the games that were played, there were 21 overtime games. 1 went to 4 overtimes, and 1 went to 3. 6 went to 2. So the point of that is when you add all that together, even though you had 21, going to multiple overtimes, it did not happen very often.
Yeah, and usually on your coordinators only have X amount of 2-point plays, and it's usually
right.
about 2 of them.
Sure.
You don't practice your 2-point plays and spend a bunch of time, but this is going to force guys to, if they pass this rule, that you're going to have to work on and waste time on silly 2-point plays. So I hope they don't do that. Brent, OU and Nebraska are going to be playing football. I think that's wonderful. I think Texas and Texas A&M should be playing football every year, just like Florida. I mean, could you imagine Florida State now not playing it? I mean, we saw it this year, but in a regular season, Florida State not playing.
No. It cheats the fans, and frankly, college football in general. And look, obviously Nebraska and Oklahoma aren't in the same conference anymore, but Nebraska really tried to get out of the Oklahoma game that's coming up. Fortunately, that did not happen. They decided they would continue to stay in the game. And again, this is the 50th anniversary coming up this year of that 1971 Game of the Century contest when they played and Nebraska scored late to beat Oklahoma 35-31, and certainly one of the greatest games ever. So we thought we may not have that game this year, but we will. And listen, Shane, the reality is Oklahoma right now has got a much better program than Nebraska. We thought Scott Frost would turn that around immediately. It has not happened yet, but still, I'm with you. Those two teams should be playing a lot more often than they are.
Yeah, I agree. All right, spring ball. The defending national champs are cranking it up tomorrow. Any news coming out of Alabama?
Well, they obviously are concerned about the quarterback situation with Mac Jones gone. So they've got several guys vying for that position. Bryce Young, we think, is going to be the guy, but that's why you have spring, and they all need that. Also, Najee Harris is gone. Going to be they've got a pretty good running back room. At that point, too, Brian Robinson is going to be leading, I think, that group. He is a senior. He obviously came back, one of their super seniors. So Alabama looking forward to getting started. But I can tell you right now, there's more excitement right now on that campus for basketball than there is football.
Isn't that something? That's funny. I didn't even think about that. You're right. Auburn started yesterday. I guess a lot of people that are Auburn fans are excited to see what Brian Harsin brings and what Bo Nix can do in his offense.
No doubt. And again, they've got Mike Bobo is your offensive coordinator, and Derek Mason is your defensive coordinator. So the two names very familiar with our listeners. They've got to be able to figure out. There's two things about Bo Nix, and Shane and I have talked about this a good bit for our listeners. He doesn't trust his offensive line, so they've got to do something to get that as an improvement. They haven't recruited well on the offensive line. And the other thing is, Shane, they've lost a lot of those receivers. Seth Williams, Anthony Schwartz, Eli Stove are gone. I think they will be okay on the defensive line. The offensive line, as we mentioned, needs a lot of work. Brian Harsin in there to start. You can kind of get the culture together for him. So I think so far so good. But that's going to be very interesting to see where they go.
Yep. Gators finish up practice this week. I had someone send me a text, and I kind of looked at it briefly, Brent. Are the Gators the only school in the SEC not having a spring game?
Kentucky is not. So Florida and Kentucky are the only two schools that are not having a spring game. Everyone else is basically having a spring game primarily either on the 17th or the 24th, which usually is late for the SEC, but several schools are doing it on the 24th. I do wish Florida had one. I think the fans would have appreciated that. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. But yeah, so far only Florida and Kentucky.
Yep. Georgia starts today. Any word coming out of Athens?
The main thing they've got to be able to do is they've got plenty of talent in their secondary, but they have got to replace Eric Stokes, Tyson Campbell, Richard LeCount, DJ Daniel, Mark Webb. That's a lot of names, but they've got a lot of 5-stars back there. Lewis Sine is one of those that they think is going to be able to take up the mantle as far as leadership and go with there. They need to kind of find out what they're going to do offensively. JT Daniels returns as quarterback. So the Dogs have gotten started this week with an eye on getting that secondary up to speed.
What's going on in Baton Rouge with the Tigers?
They have started this week too. I think the biggest thing there is, again, as you and I have talked, is the quarterback situation. Miles Brennan, who had a abdomen injury, an abdominal injury, is back. They think that he may be the starter. That they are going with the competition for all the quarterbacks. Max Johnson, TJ Finley. That's going to be an interesting race. Micah Baskerville, one of their starting linebackers, because of academics, will not be involved in the spring. Hopefully he can get that together. But obviously new coordinators, different staff additions for Ed Orgeron. So it will be a very interesting spring for LSU after struggling mightily last year.
Yeah, and then I think one of the most interesting deals in the SEC this year is A&M. I know they got a lot of people coming back. They lose Kellen Mond. Do they have some quality guys that can step in at the quarterback position?
Yeah, I think they do. I'm curious if you know any of these guys. Eli Stowers is one of those guys. Freshman Haynes King, who's gotten a lot of publicity. Zach Calzada is another one. And again, obviously with Kellen Mond gone, they've kind of got to restart over there. But the thing that they smartly have done, their offensive line is good. Their defensive line is very good. And they've got a lot of their bigger games, i.e. the Alabama game, at home. So, Shane, I can tell you now, we're going to hear a lot about A&M. Alabama will be the team to beat, but that A&M will be still the up-and-coming team to challenge the Tide.
Tennessee, all kinds of issues going on up there with the whole Kevin Steele deal. Didn't they just lose a couple of players that got kicked off the team or got in trouble or something like that?
They had 3 of them: Martavius French, Aaron Willis, Isaac Washington, charged with simple possession, unlawful drug paraphernalia. So yeah, that's what you don't want if you're a young player with a new coach. That's the last thing that you want to see happen. And the other thing, people may miss this: the entire football program has been shut down till Monday because of COVID tests and contact tracing. So at this point, Shane, Josh Heupel can't catch a break, can he?
He really can't. Looking at the ACC, if you look at the state of Florida, the big schools, everybody's going to have a new not really a new quarterback, but I don't want to say question marks. I think everybody knows Emory Jones will be the starter here at Florida. But it looks like McKenzie Milton is the leader to be the starter for the Seminoles this year. And then De'Aaron King coming off that torn ACL, do they think he will be ready to go?
They think so. And again, when you get hurt late, as he did, torn ACL, but with the surgery, they say that he's coming along very well in rehab so far. So this will give them a chance to work with some of the backups. And you mentioned the FSU situation. McKenzie Milton from UCF is the quarterback, or at least one of them in this competition. Chubba Purdy, Tate Rodemaker are also involved with this. Jordan Travis is too. That's going to be a very interesting competition. And Shane, we've said this more than once on our segment. listen, if Mackenzie Milton, who threw for 9,000 yards at UCF, if he is anything near what he was at Central Florida, he not only could be a good quarterback, he could be one of the better quarterbacks in the league.
He really could. Brent, before we let you go, I got to read This Day in Sports, which is brought to you by Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. This month, get a free annual maintenance plan with every residential duct cleaning purchase, $199 value. The service department's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for your convenience. I wanted you to hear this. In 1990, at the Players' Championship over there in TPC, which we just saw Justin Thomas win, Jody Mudd wins by one stroke ahead of the runner-up Gator Mark Calcavecchia, and listen to what he won. This is in 31 years ago?
Yeah.
He won a cool $270,000, where Justin Thomas just won, I think, $2.4 million.
Yeah, really.
That's crazy.
It really is it not? Well, of course, I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be glad for the prize money back in the early '90s, wouldn't they, Shane?
No question. I don't even think dead last got you $270,000. It's probably about $500,000 this year. But Brent, good stuff as always, my man. Be safe over there, and we will talk to you next week.
We'll look forward to it, Shane. Always enjoy it. Take care.
Yeah, that's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan MR hotline from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Going to take our first time out of this Thursday edition. We come back, we're going to be joined by former Gator basketball standout, Craig Brown. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. G-Tech Sport, keep your athletes in the game with G-Tech Sport. Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, Cornerstone Financial, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Chick-fil-A on Archer Road, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Chomp Carter Apparel, Ruse Ogra Agent, State Farm Insurance, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to a Thursday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We're now going to go to the Titan MR hotline. We're going to be joined by former Gator great basketball player, our man Craig Brown. Good morning, Craig. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Shane. I'm doing great here, man. It's funny to say good morning to you because it's evening over here for me.
Yeah, we'll tell everybody where you are. You're over in Thailand right now, but I want to go back to your younger days, growing up in the state of Pennsylvania. You were Lon Kruger's, I believe, his first recruit when he became the head coach at the University of Florida. What made Craig Brown want to leave the state of Pennsylvania and go be a Florida Gator?
Hey, man, I took my visit down to Gainesville in April. So it was gray skies, cold weather, and snow on the ground in Pennsylvania at that time. And obviously in Gainesville, it was probably 80 degrees, bright sunshine, palm trees. So that was the initial icebreaker right there for me. Weather, getting away from home, and just looking forward to kind of growing up and kind of taking from what my parents had instilled in me for 18 years and trying to venture out and see if I could do things on my own.
Yeah, it's interesting. What other schools did you look at? Because, a lot of people, even today, even after what you guys did going to the Final Four and also what Billy Donovan did, people still want to, I don't want to say criticize, but they don't understand why some of the top-notch players won't come play at Florida. But honestly, it's really not a, quote, one of the blue bloods basketball schools. What other schools did you consider before you became a Gator?
My final decision came down to Florida or Maryland. Maryland was just at that time just hit with maybe 2 years of probation, and they were not going to be allowed into the postseason tournament, which would have been my first 2 years. So I kind of looked at that as a negative in some ways, which kind of made me lean obviously more towards Florida. And then I could also go on to Temple, who had the great legendary coach and John Chaney. Mm-hmm. But they were loaded. They were loaded with a senior and Mark Macon. And they probably had 5 other guards. 2 of them would have been coming in my class, actually 3. The player of the year in Pennsylvania, his name was Jonathan Haynes. Aaron McKee was also a Philadelphia guy who would have been in my same class. And Eddie Jones would have been in that same class too. And the latter 2 of them, they both made it and played long careers in the NBA. So I felt like my chances of getting on the court were a little bit better down in Gainesville.
Yeah. When you look back at your career as a Gator, obviously I would think, the 94 team being the first Gator team to go to the Final Four probably is the one year that stands out in your mind. But just talk about some of the great memories that you had being a Gator basketball player.
Well, heck, man, one of the ones was, the T-shirts that you just had made up, and just being able to spend my time living in Yon Hall and having those experiences with not just my teammates, but all the other athletes, getting the opportunity to be in the dining hall with guys like you, Eric Rett, and many of the other great Florida football players, but track athletes, baseball, swimming, tennis. That in itself was awesome and has helped me to just kind of reflect on my 4 years back in Gainesville. Was just truly the best years of my life. And those moments, being able to sit in the hallway, 3 a.m. and just chopping it up with your teammates, help create lifelong relationships that I have still maintained to this day.
Yeah, Craig, I've mentioned several times, and we'll talk about your coaching career. You coached a little college ball as well. Do you think it's hurt college athletics when the NCAA got rid of the, quote, athletic dorms? Because as you just mentioned, all the male athletes lived in the same place there in Yon Hall in the football stadium. But you got to know the basketball players, the baseball players, the track athletes. And nowadays, with kids living all over the place, I don't think they get that bond that we had back in those days.
I agree with you. I think when you now allow the players to kind of venture out and kind of maybe have 2 teammates living together, but then they might also have two dorm mates that aren't basketball players. I think it can go either way. I think it can be great that the student athletes get a chance to interact with, the normal student body. But I do think it takes away a little bit of that team bonding and that athletic bonding that you and I were able to kind of be a part of and experience during our time. I think the young players today, they have no idea what living in an all athletic dorm really meant. But if you ask all of our teammates that were there during that time, and I don't think any of them would trade that experience for anything.
Yeah, we're speaking with Craig Brown here on the Titan War Hotline, a shooting guard for the first ever Final Four team for the Florida Gators. Let's talk about that 94 season a little bit. It was kind of a magical run, kind of upset UConn, if I believe. Just kind of take us through what you guys were thinking. Anytime you go into the tournament, and obviously the Gators play tomorrow in the NCAA tournament, anytime you go in there, you feel like you can advance and move on to the Final Four, but sometimes you got to be realistic. Did you guys really believe that y'all could make a run that year?
We obviously we were super excited to be a number 3 seed going into the tournament. Our number 3 seed was higher than what Kentucky got, or it was the same. And Rick Pitino was super livid and hot about that. So that made me excited going into the tournament. Did I know that we had a chance to make a run as far as we did? Absolutely not. This was our first taste of making it to the tournament during my senior year. So we hadn't had that experience. We weren't, on top year in and year out like you and your Gators were on the football field. So the type of success that we had had that year it was super new and exciting. But, once we got that first game under our belt, it was a tight nail breaker. We beat James Madison. Greg Tiny Williams knocked down the big three, helped us win by 1 or 2 points there up in Long Island. And then we faced a very tough Penn team, and we were able to get by them. That's when we ran into Danielle Marshall, a freshman, in Ray Allen, and I think they had probably 4 or 5 other players, Kevin Ollie. A lot of those guys made it to the NBA, and we were really fortunate, man, to have Danielle Marshall, the player of the year, step up to the free throw line and not come through for UConn and send the game into overtime. And, and then we had a chance to play against Boston College after getting past UConn, and, just things kind of just came together for us. I think the nation was still rooting against us. No way can the Florida Gators, a team from a football school, make it to the Final Four. Heck, I'll tell you a quick story. We win in Miami against Boston College, and every team we're watching win to make it to the Final Four. The other teams, Arkansas, Arizona, and Duke, they all got T-shirts and hats after they won their Elite Eight game. There was nothing available for us after our win, so that just tells you how nobody was expecting us to move on at that.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. So, growing up a youngster, you being a basketball guy, even being a football guy, playing a little high school basketball, I love the Final Four. I love the tournament. It's something every kid dreams of. When you guys got to Charlotte, I believe the Final Four that year was in Charlotte. What was it like, because I know they let the fans come in, when you're doing your little practices and all that kind of stuff. Just when you walked into that arena and you were like, man, you saw the floor painted with the Final Four logo. What was that feeling like?
Overwhelming. I mean, it was absolutely exciting. To walk out and have, whether 15, 12,000 fans there for a practice. To be honest, man, I was a little bit nervous walking out there. Wanting everything to kind of flow for you in a perfect way, as opposed to maybe if we had a little experience of that in years past, it might have been a little easier to jump out there and just go through things. But I was a little tight, but also excited to be there, ready for the challenges that we were about to face. I think the guys, in general, they probably were a lot more loose than I was, especially the young guys, the Brian Thompsons, Dimitri Hills, and Jason Andersons, and those guys. They were pretty much relaxed throughout the year, where I was always the senior guy that, kind of was all wound up and just kind of, thinking all of the things that I had to do, maybe to get those guys in line or thinking the right way. But again, it was a great experience, traveling around Charlotte. Going to a small practice venue, trying to put some things together in a quick practice in preparation for Duke. And then knowing that we were going to be facing Duke and Krzyzewski on the sideline, and then having the great Grant Hill on their end. All of that was really exciting. We step out on the floor and here we go. And, you kind of want to have a little anger, a little chip that you can use against somebody like a Grant Hill. And here's this big, giant, nice guy, and saying hello to you and asking, are you okay? He made a 3-pointer in front of me, Shane. And when he came down, him being 6'8" and me being only about 6'2", 6'3", his elbow hit me in the top of the head. And so we go down and we're on the free throw line, and he's like, hey, man, are you all right? I'm sorry for what happened. And I'm looking at him like, man, don't tell me you're sorry. I want to be mad at you. I want to attack you. And here you are being super nice. So maybe that was his gamesmanship. And trying to take advantage of my kindness during that time.
Yeah, and Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today, 352-244-0840. Speaking with Craig Brown, former Gator shooting guard on that first Final Four team. Gators play tomorrow against Virginia Tech to crank up the NCAA tournament. Let's talk a little bit about Lon Kruger. As I mentioned, I think you were his first recruit here. Did wonders for the basketball program. And I was trying to remember, did he leave the Gators and go to Illinois, or did he go to the Hawks?
Illinois.
Then he went to the Hawks.
Yep.
Then he went to the Hawks. So
I think he made an Elite Eight run there at Illinois, I believe. but didn't get any further. Elite Eight or Sweet 16. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Lon is one of, I think, only 3 coaches now. I think it's Tubby Smith himself and now Rick Pitino that take 5 different programs to the NCAA tournament. Just talk a little bit about what it was like playing for Lon Kruger.
Very cool, laid back coach. It was my first coach and probably only coach that never used a curse word during practice or in the games or even in the locker room. He really didn't even like us to curse or swear, during our practices. He would always kind of give you that smirk and kind of twist his mouth and his eyebrow, kind of looking at you like, hey, we don't need to do that or do things that way. And he was just that kind of guy. But in game, I thought he was great to kind of keep us poised, keep us, relaxed. I remember playing a game against Mississippi State my senior year, the Final Four year, and we're at home in Mississippi State with Eric Dampier and a number of other players. They jump out on us 12-0. And, in the first 2-3 minutes of the game, they're up 12-0. So obviously we have to call a timeout. We come over to the bench. Finally, I'm expecting coach to curse at us and tell us how sorry we were, how scared we were. And, he draws on the board a smiley face. And we're like on his dry erase board, he draws a smiley face. And yes, and just like you just did, you smile or you laughed and it made us laugh. And he was like, exactly. Take a deep breath, count to 10, relax yourselves. You guys will be fine. And we were, and we went back out there and we won the game. So just little things like that is what I remember about Coach. And, he was, a very good in-game X's and O's guy and kind of knew the right buttons to push at the right time.
Yeah, he's done a tremendous job everywhere he's been. So how often, or when's the last time you were in the O'Connell Center?
For our reunion, which was probably February 2019.
Okay, so 29. So they had already. It was the new Exactech Arena then when you were there, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so I was going to ask you, had you been back since they've redone the facility? Your thoughts on that?
Oh, I thought it was sharp. I liked it. I enjoyed it. Now I was a little confused on how to get from one end to the other when they got the new grandstand there. Patrick Ewing can't even get remembered in Madison Square Garden. So Craig Brown walking around, the O'Connell Center, you can only imagine how many times I got stopped. But no, I like the new setup. I think it's great. I liked it. I liked everything about it. And I was happy to be back, in Gator Nation, walking out on the floor. But not just for me to be able to do it, but obviously to be able to walk out there with all of my former teammates and some coaches and managers as well. That made it great.
Yeah. Craig, so after your playing days, you got into coaching. You've coached a little bit at Central Florida twice with 2 different former Gator assistants. Did you want to be a coach? And then tell everybody what you're doing now in association with the NBA.
I never thought that I was going to be a coach until Kirk Spiro, as you mentioned, a former Gator assistant coach. He approached me when I was working one of Billy Donovan's camps, and his older son, Drew, was in the camp. And I had a shooting station, and I didn't realize Coach Spiro was watching me teach during the shooting station. And after the station ended, I looked over and we made eye contact, and he said, "Hey, you did a great job there. Let's chat afterwards." And he said he had a position open on his staff. And I was like, man, Coach, I never thought about coaching. I'm still young. I'm 28 years old. I still want to play ball. I still have some overseas opportunities. And he understood that, but he said, I have a position. If you want it, come down, take a look. And so that's kind of how I got into college coaching. Very fortunate that it was with a Kirk Spiro, somebody that I had admired the 3 years that he was there as an assistant under Coach Kruger before he left to take the UCF job. And that run for me down at UCF under Spiro lasted 10 years. We had 10 good years of being competitive down there in Orlando, helping UCF continue to advance and be known nationally. We lost our job opportunities in 2010. And then 2 years later, I was able to make it back on Donnie Jones' staff, another former assistant who was on Billy Donovan's championship teams. and I was able to make it back in a different role as a director of basketball operations. So I wasn't able to be on the court coaching and teaching, but I was still involved with the program in a great way. It was great to be back and involved with college athletics. And that opportunity that I had being director of basketball operations helped me to get the job that I held with the NBA by going over to Hong Kong and being a part of NBA China. Because I had the director of operations role under Donnie Jones, that was enticing to the NBA that I was the right fit to lead their junior grassroots program over in Southeast Asia. And
you're still doing that now, correct?
Still doing that now, but I had been for the past 3.5, 4 years, I've been in China working for NBA academies. And I was based in the Shandong province, working with, boys and girls, probably from the age of about 14 to age 20, trying to identify top talent. Sometimes we were able to take the top talent from China and from our academies and go down to Australia and compete against other academy teams from Africa, Latin America, India, you name it. We were able to go different places. Went to Atlanta, where we competed in games versus those other academies and other kids from around the world. So it's been great, just building relationships with the local government bodies and teaching the local coaches as well as players. It's been an awesome experience. And I did that up until COVID came up in January of last year. And when COVID came, I had to make a quick decision, go back to the U.S. or stay in this area and come to Thailand. And so I made that choice simply because there was no March Madness last year and the NBA was postponing their season. So I said, heck, what am I going back home for? Why not just stay over in Thailand? So that turned out to be a pretty good decision for me, but I didn't know that I would still be here 1 year later.
So how often do you get back to the U.S.?
Last time I was home and hugged my mom was September of 2019.
Oh, wow. Wow. So, so did it take you a long time to get adjusted living over there?
Yes and no. When I first started with the NBA over in Hong Kong, I had been to Hong Kong before as a minor league professional basketball player. They had leagues in Hong Kong, and I was able to have that experience. That's why when the NBA said, hey, we got a position, unfortunately, it's in Hong Kong. Would you be interested? I said, oh, yeah, absolutely, because I had been to Hong Kong before. So that transition wasn't too hard. Moving up to China was a little more difficult. And when I did move up to China, I preferred to stay in a hotel my first year just so I could have English-speaking people around me at all times. If I needed help with my computer or my TV was acting up, or if I needed help with a taxi, I knew I could always count on the hotel staff to help me out there until I got more comfortable. After year one, I was able to move out into my own apartment, move around the city that I was in. They consider it kind of a tier 2 city, but it still has like 11 million people there. So it just gives you an example of the size of the cities and places throughout China.
So they're pretty good players over there in your little academies?
Not bad. Are they ready for NBA? Is there the next Yao Ming coming down the pike immediately? No. But the kids can play. The kids, they have great work ethics. They listen well. They're excited to have you come in and teach them. The government officials that are running these programs, they're excited to have you there. I'm a guy that once I'm on the floor, off the court, many people look at me as who I really am, a quiet, shy, laid back guy. But when I'm on the court and I have a chance to teach and I'm out there doing what I love, I get really passionate about it. I get loud, I clap my hands. And that's exactly what the Chinese folks were looking for and happy to have. So it made my experience there great. So I miss being there with the players, seeing them continue to grow and advance. In China, their big goal on the youth level, they have what they call national games, which is like their youth Olympics, and it comes around once every 4 years. So this would have been my second opportunity to try and compete for the National Youth Championship. 4 years ago, when I first got to China, we finished in second place. We lost by 1 in the championship game. So that was a little heartbreaking. But I was thinking about obviously still being there for national games this coming year around August of 2021 but not sure if things will turn out to be the same again, just simply because of the COVID pandemic and not being permitted back into China right now.
Yeah. So are you doing something similar to that in Thailand right now?
No, just here. I go out and watch people that have small academies. My role here was to watch maybe some videos of talent that the NBA was looking to maybe send off to NBA academies, maybe some talent that they wanted to identify to go to maybe some prep schools or maybe have collegiate possibilities. So I was watching video for a while, but again, the pandemic affected everybody. So even the business in the U.S. And other academies around the world was affected. So things have not been normal. So I've been truly blessed to have still been under contract with the NBA all this time for the past year, and to be in an unbelievably awesome place in Thailand where, life is really, really similar to how we live there in Florida.
Awesome. Last thing for you, Craig. I don't know how often you get to watch college basketball or if you get to watch the Gators play at all this year. I don't know if you even know Mike White. Your thoughts on Mike White? He's taken the Gators to 4 straight or maybe 5 straight, I can't remember, NCAA tournament appearances. Just your thoughts on the Gator basketball program right now.
Yeah, I know Mike. Known Mike for many years, and had a chat with him when he first got on board. Welcomed him and wished him, good luck with the program and everything. I know he's, more of a defensive-minded coach, or at least that's what I always thought of him, especially when before he got to UF with his Louisiana Tech teams. They put a lot of pressure on teams full court defensively. Like you mentioned, he's taken the Gators to 4 or 5 straight tournament appearances. I had him there, and I believe it was either the Sweet 16 or Elite 8 in year 1 or year 2. And I'm pulling for these guys again against Virginia Tech. I think it's going to be a tough challenge going up against Virginia Tech, a very good competitive ACC team. But I think on any given night, going into March Madness, I think it's called March Madness just for that reason. Anything can happen. So I always will be pulling for the Gators and hope they can go out there and put together some good offense and then obviously I think do what they do best and compete on the defensive end.
Yeah, like I said, I think they have one kid. I don't know if you're familiar with him, and if you get to watch him a lot, Trey Mann. This is year 2 for him. He's really made a jump, and he's probably going to be going pro. How do you see his game transitioning to the NBA?
Well, I see him as a very comfortable ball handler, being able to get to spots on the floor. I think he has a nice shooting touch, whether it's from inside the arc or beyond the 3. Obviously today's game it has changed a little bit to where it is about skill. So I think that will play into his favor. And obviously I think no matter who you are coming out of the collegiate level, you still got to get stronger. Obviously, you're going to be going up against grown men on that professional level who understand that, it's a business on the professional level. So that could always be challenges for young guys when they first make that jump. I would love to see him come back, play again. But, if he has first round opportunities to go to the NBA, I wish him all the best because you really can't turn down that type of opportunity.
No doubt about it. Well, Craig, we appreciate you taking the time to join our program from Thailand. Keep working hard out there and enjoying your time working with the NBA. And I know the Gator Nation was glad to hear from you. Tremendous shooting guard here for the Gators, and we will talk to you soon, my man.
Sounds good, Shane. I really appreciate you having me on, my man. I really do.
Absolutely. That's Craig Brown joining us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. Going to take our final time out of this Thursday edition. When we come back, we'll wrap it up.
Hey, Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. Hot Up with Matthews in the Morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. G-Tech Sport, keep your athletes in the game with G-Tech Sport. Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Doreen Wiebe, Realtor, Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care. Gator Bait Media, Wrap Spot, Okido America, Gators Dockside, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
First and 10. Matthews, near side, wide open, Alonzo Sullivan. He may go. Touchdown, Gators.